All right, so welcome to another video from the chart reader. So we will be looking at the psychedelic sector. So we have 5 tickers from the last time we did this, and then I'm actually going to be adding a 6th one that was a request. So with that, hey, if you haven't already, please subscribe, and then also feel free to comment if you want me to look at other tickers that I'm not within any sector, this one or any of the other ones. Hey, throw it in the comments. I'd love to, add more. It's a good way to make us all kind of look at the same thing, right? So like always, we're going to start with roughly what I call the main one and then work our way through the other ones. We'll look at the daily as well as the weekly chart. We'll use our moving averages, support and resistance lines that you don't see on the screen just yet, and then our lower indicators just as that extra reassurance. So if you watched the last video on the 18th, you would know that I drew lines, and what actually happened is there was a pretty big split, so it took me a second to zoom out, but we were working in this $1, $2 world. It looks like it basically moved up $10 on a split. So that's what's happened. Nothing ran from $2 to $12, right? It just literally moved a decimal over and adjusted everybody's stocks accordingly. So with that, what have we seen in the last few days? So again, we made this video on the 18th, and really it made a crushing run to right here, right? Basically the 200. Unfortunately, the 200 failed really hard. It wanted to get caught by this 100. Looks like it might not have, but right now we're at a really important point, right? We're trading under the 8. It's actually been 2 days, yesterday and today, Friday and today was under the 8. It looks like we're actually under the 100 today, but hopefully the fact that we have 2 moving averages, we have the 20 and the 50, ideally one of the 2 of them will be able to catch it. So again, a pretty hard fall to say the least. Personally, I would want to get in here after a break of 1311. The break of 1311 gets us over the 8 and really breaks the last big green candle in the last, week and a half of trading, right? The very worst thing that could happen is obviously losing the 20 and the 50. I kind of like the fact that the RSI looks a little good. It looks like it kind of wants to be taking off. There's a little bit of a gap forming there, right? But again, I think the safest play would be breaking this, basically the top of the close, of the 24th, which looks like it was 1306. So I'll obviously be drawing a line there shortly. But yeah, overall, that's pretty much a quick view on the daily. Before I go to the weekly, let me draw a few lines. Let me lower that just a little bit. Perfect. It's still a little higher than the number I said, but whatever. And then this one's clearly a line. Let's lower that. And then I think we'll make one more just to get, because honestly, we're pretty much, look at that. I just drew that line and you'll see we're pretty much right at that line right there, right? I think this will be a good one to draw. And then really, let me zoom out a little bit. Yeah, for sure. This will be the last one we drew. Oh, wrong way. There we go. Bottom of here. So again, this is a pretty good step up and step down. At this point, the goal would be that we basically stay in this channel, eventually break it, and then look, there's way more than 10% right there, right? There's a little bit more than $1.30 between here and there. So this would be a pretty good gap to play, and really a little bit safer one to play than this. And then again, hopefully we don't start coming down to here, because then, we're talking about losing some averages. So, but one more time, there was a split. So that did a few things to our lines here. Really, look at that. So I think we drew some pretty good lines, because honestly, they look really good on the weekly right here. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. What are we looking at the weekly? Look, the last 3 weeks ago, we were moving up, and really even this last previous week, though we did drop, we stayed over the 20, and then we did obviously stay over the 8, right? We started a little lower than ideal, and we're really only climbing our way up right now, right? But make sure that we do stay over the 20 by Friday, and obviously we got to stay over 1140, right? But this doesn't look as healthy of an RSI for the weekly. It actually looks like the green is going under right now. But again, I think we're at a place where hopefully this daily catches us. Otherwise, again, if we lose this line, we'll start going under the 8 pretty much, right? And that'll be a pretty scary thing for next week. So hopefully Mind Medicine turns itself around. CYBN, I'll be real honest, this one's been real nice. So take a look at that. We're obviously looking at the weekly. Let's start at the daily. But if you've used this video, I think you also would have done well, right? So what's happened? So we made this video on the 18th. We basically were coming up to this 200. It obviously failed, but look, the 8 just caught it. And look, how long has this thing been riding the 8, right? I'm telling you, there's a reason why I'm using all these lines, right? My wife makes fun of me. She throws out 8s and 20s and 10s and whatevers. But I promise you, I'm using these for reasons, right? Once we broke the 200, really, it just became a dance of our support and resistance lines, right? It does look like the RSI is not, nothing spectacular. But look, this MACD does look nice. And look, as long as we keep going up, there's no reason to believe it wouldn't, right? We have a couple more lines still here. So I do, yes, this is a pretty good zoom out right here. So basically, again, needs to see how this goes, right? But between where we're at and the top line, there's roughly 25% if it does work its way up, right? So this has been a very pretty ticker, I'm not going to lie. Hopefully you did use this video. Again, this is not financial advice, of course, but this video was pretty good for the ticker. Again, look, this is a pretty healthy weekly. Just know that we're coming up to the 50 on the weekly. That's not an easy thing to break. And I could see this being a fail point, Again, will it be a hard drop and go all the way? I'm not necessarily saying that, but it is hard to break the 50 on the weekly. So I could see that being a reason. Because right here, again, I'm going to zoom out just real quick. There are no more moving averages, right? It just kind of looks like clear sailing, right? Clear sailing, clear sailing. That's why it's really good to go back, check some other time frames and see, oh, I actually do have a moving average coming up right here. So that's why I do like jumping back and forth between these. But one more time, this is a pretty chart. Again, we made the last video on the 18th, basically broke the 200 and then just started going. And more than anything, this 8 was a real good catch for everything. And look, it even kind of came down to this line too. So yeah, overall, very happy with the charting. I left last week on CYBN. ATAI. All right, see, I didn't know how this one was going, but yeah, not too bad. Look, this one's really just been running in this tight channel, right? For the most part, pretty much staying exactly on this 468 line, right? Little below, little above, little below, pretty much staying actually under it. It tests up here, but these have been the first tests on this side, which is nice to see. We closed over the 8. It looks like we closed a penny over, but it is a penny over on the line. Let me see if I have some lines up here. So, excuse me, I would really consider this once we get a confirmed break over 494. Because again, we've made 1 test, 2 tests, and just staying right here, right? Hopefully we break through this and just make a nice run up here. So yeah, this one I would really play at the break of this one. I don't think anything really before, but it seems to be wanting to set up. Obviously, it's not a great RSI, but there's been so many tests on this line. It looks like it wanted a break. It came down. Hopefully gets one more push up and going. But CYBN obviously looks a little better than this one, to say the least. CMPS. So this is, oh, sorry. Let me look at the weekly real quick. Yeah, no, really same. Look, needs to break this line. I think 1 week, 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks of testing. This thing needs to break it, or it just needs to give up and go down. So watch for the break of that line. CMPS. So we're going to come to Compass Pathways. So really not too much happening here since we made the video. So look, we broke the 200 actually in early August, and we've for the most part been riding it, right? Obviously it looked like there was a fail here, but yeah, we're back up. We're obviously still really tight on this 8. It'd be good to get over the 20 and really a break of this 18, really probably this line. I would probably feel a little more comfortable at 1863, give or take, right? But yeah, so far, really, CYBN's been the only one that looked good, right? And again, hopefully you're using these videos to see that, right? It's about breaking upward versus either staying within these channels or going down with the moving averages, right? That's always the goal. But look at this. So look, Compass is pretty much fighting with this 50. And I'll tell you, if it actually breaks the 50 on the weekly, I would feel comfortable believing it's going to make a good run up. Because look, it really hasn't gone up there, almost a year, right? We're coming up on a year. November was actually the last time this thing was there. And let's be honest, November is right around the corner, right? So it's really important to keep things like that in mind. And hey, if it can actually get over the 50, that is going to be no small accomplishment, especially if there's 2 weeks of confirmation, right? If it breaks and then the following week you confirm, oh yeah, that's beautiful. So I'd be watching this one, but again, this is kind of like the last ones we've been talking about, right? It needs to make more of a move before feeling comfortable. CYBN is the one that, made the break, riding the 8, and looking like it's on the way, assuming it breaks that weekly wall, for lack of words. SEEL, Celos Therapeutics. So, this one's actually not bad. So I was not following this one, I'll be real honest with you, but it actually made a pretty nice move since we made this video on the 18th, right? 15, 16, 17. So there was a big day when we made this video. Really, all that happened was it kind of made a tight little wedge between the 200 and the 8, little wedge, and then a nice little break, right? Pretty much gets caught by this 120 line, made another little attempt, and then kind of working its way back. I don't like that we're testing the 8. We have a pretty bad RSI looking, and this MACD is also curving a little bit. So I'd be worried, but look, as long as you stay over the 200, if you got in early, you're still sitting pretty well, right? But this line especially, I wouldn't want to lose this line because that's roughly 50% of this candle, right? I don't want to lose 50%. That's for sure. So SEEL doesn't look too great, but there was a nice little break since the making of this video, right? Really, there was a 25% gain if you use these lines correctly. So yeah. Let me look at the weekly real quick. Sorry. Again, kind of the same story on the weekly, right? Coming up to the 50 on the weekly, hasn't been over the 50, my goodness, since what is this, July, August? Yeah, since July of 2001, right? So breaking the 50 is going to be difficult, but if it could do it, it will be an accomplishment that's definitely worth noting, right? So that kind of seems to be the theme along these, so... And then lastly, again, this one is new to the sector. This one was by request, so I do need to make a couple lines. I will say, so I'm looking at TRUFF, TRUFF. This is the over-the-counter ticker. So I'm in the US. This is a Canadian stock, so I have to use the penny slips, basically. I believe TRIP is another ticker this thing goes on. That's on the Canadian ticker, but for me, I have to use TRUFF. With that, look, there's a lot of tight action happening here, right? There was a pretty monster break and really just kind of a riding of the 200 break, the 8 and the 20 right here, right? I'm really like, I don't want to make it sound like I don't like penny stocks, right? But it is a little bit harder when you're working in this low a dollar range and a volume range, right? Nonetheless, we're still going to make some lines. I'll probably use the weekly. I think that'll be the easiest way to make the weekly, make the lines. But overall, look, this actually is a fairly good chart. I don't like that the RSI is kind of doing this work its way down, but it seems to make pretty drastic changes, right? So again, that goes with a lot of this. But look, today was a negative 11 day, and that's a pretty small red candle, right? So there's definitely a lot of action happening here, but you got to remember when there's volume and penny stocks, you've got to be a little more careful. This is interesting to see. So this has actually broken the 50. There were points of confirmation. It does look like this week's kind of slowing it down, right? But that is really interesting to see, actually. That said, let me make a couple lines and then we'll go from there. I think that's a pretty good line. That'll be a good line. See, there's not a lot. I'm probably going to actually use bottoms instead of tops, I think. Yeah, I'll put one right there. Put one right there. This one I'll use as a top. Okay, again, it's a pretty tight window here. And look, there's actually not a lot of trading history. So TRUFF, I will say be careful with this because, again, it's going to have very, very drastic swings up and down. The weekly's not looking too good, I will say that. But if you can use these lines, I mean, that's a 50% gap right there. Obviously, we're sitting in the middle of it, right? But there are some nasty percentages within these lines, right? Now, again, on the daily, I might make another line right there. There's a little bit more to be done if you want to finesse it, but I think for now that's actually not bad for the lines here on the first view. So again, I hope you're learning from this. This is obviously not financial advice. This is educational only, but hey, technical analysis is a very powerful thing. And if you know what you're doing, you can do some good stuff. So I do hope you're learning. Have a good one.